The Axman stalked away from the conflagration it had started. Its pilot took it along a path that put it back on Snatch and Grab's route. There were people on the streets now, drawn out by the explosion. The smart ones disappeared as soon as they caught sight of the Axman. The stupid ones stood and gawked or ran around in panic. The stupidest ones were removed from the gene pool by the ponderous tramp of the BattleMech. Their own fault. Initiation to War, page 48, by Robert N. Charette. Some BattleMechs are best known for the famous mech warriors that piloted them. Others are known for their unique roles in the history of the Inner Sphere, Periphery, or clans. A few are even known for being uniquely terrible boondoggles or hilarious misallocations of resources. Not gonna name names. The venerable Axman holds the distinct honor and possibly some dishonor of being strongly associated not just with several big historical names, but also stood as a symbol of an unprecedented unification of two major houses. Then, a little while later, an example of the folly inherent in such a venture. The Axman's troubled rise and tempestuous prime years ended up weaving a narrative foundation for what has been an epic showing at the dawn of the Ilklan era. I hope you can stick around as we look into this 65-ton BattleMech that doesn't take any guff off of anyone. Originally conceived as a heavier and upgraded version of the noble Hatchetman, the plans for the AXM-1N Axman spent nearly 2 decades being bandied from one desk and design team to another before the technology unlocked by the discovery of the Helm Memory Core made it feasible. Johnston Industries had experience producing the Hatchetman on new syrtis, and with the similarities between it and the Axman, it made sense to expand the production facilities there for the new BattleMech. Constructed from a Darwinian AXM standard chassis wrapped around a Magna 260XL Fusion engine, the Axman team spared little expense. This was going to be a premier frontline BattleMech that could leave an impression, one way or another. The Axman's top speed of 64 km per hour wasn't going to break any speed records, but the XL engine was intended to free up mass for other things, including the Hildco Model 12 jump jets, which allowed the machine to leap up to 120 meters. The 464 movement profile was deemed adequate, and they moved on to the rest of the design, which included 10 double heat sinks, one of those useless gyro thingies, and a fully modular cockpit similar to the one found on the Hatchetman, which could help the MechWarrior escape imminent doom in style and comfort. After extensive discussions concerning the benefits and drawbacks, including cost, 10 tons of Callan Unity Weave ferrofibrous armor was added to the BattleMech. While it was 2 tons shy of the possible max, the 179 points of protection placed the Axman in good company with reliably tough BattleMechs like the Crusader and Warhammer. When it came to weaponry, the Axman lived up to its name with its right arm held hatchet, which could do 13 damage per strike. However, the mech's power wasn't limited to slap fights outside of a Red Robin at 10 p.m. The original 1N Axman carried a massive Luxor Devastator 20 autocannon in its right and center torso, which was fed by 2 tons of case-protected ammunition. While it was only 10 shots, if the MechWarrior was savvy enough to save it for the right moment, the combination of autocannon shot and hatchet could fell even the largest of BattleMechs. Adding pulse laser to injury, a large Sutel precision line version of the accurate weapon was added to the left arm along with 3 Intech standard medium lasers into the right arm. The end result was a weapons loadout that was quite powerful at short range while still being somewhat potent in the mid. Live fire testing showed the Axman 1N to be a powerful close-range brawler, and the green light was eventually lit for full production. Unfortunately, among the positive field reports were the first inklings of issues with that Luxor Devastator AC-20. Apparently, when the Axman MechWarriors were in the thick of close-range combat, that AC-20, which was supposed to be a key component of the short-range punch, had a tendency to jam. When you're one shot away from victory or death, a jammed autocannon led to more than one blemish on the Axman's record. Those first years were rough for the Axman, which struggled to find acceptance within the units of the Federated Commonwealth. Seen as expensive, fussy, and difficult to keep supplied with parts that were produced across the length of the Commonwealth, few battlefield commanders wanted to put in the effort. It wasn't until word of the exploits of a minor and insignificant MechWarrior named Adam Steiner spread across with stories of the clan invasion would the Axman have a second chance at the limelight. Thomas Driftwood Tereshkova was the last green wink I received. Driftwood and his Axman matched Singh in her Crusader's top speed, weight and jump profile, and a new mech smell. His was a cutting-edge affair: 65 tons of fancy-pants ferrofibrous armor, an extra-light engine, case protection for ammunition, a big Malfing autocannon, and an even bigger Malfing axe. The Hatchetman had impressed enough people that the Axman had been created to improve upon it. Driftwood complained about wanting more lasers and less ammo-dependent guns, but despite the grouching, he was dangerous as hell in his new ride. Second to none, Shrapnel number 15, page 314 and 315, by Russell Zimmerman. Growing up on Somerset, there was very little to suggest that Adam Steiner would live a notable life. Sure, he was the cousin of Archon Melissa Steiner Davion, but minor nobles named Steiner were a dime a dozen in those days before the clan invasion. Seeking to better himself and offer something to the state, Adam Steiner first attended the military academy on Somerset before obtaining the rank of major. He then moved to Tharkat and worked as an instructor at Nagelring, which was one of the most prestigious military academies in the Federated Commonwealth. After starting a useful, if predictably uneventful life, Steiner's destiny lay not as a faculty member at the college, but as a defender of the realm. The arrival of the clans in the Inner Sphere upset countless lives, and when Adam heard that his home planet had fallen to the Jade Falcons, he had to act. The story of the first Somerset strikers has been immortalized in a very popular, if somewhat inaccurate, holodrama that immortalized both Adam Steiner and the comically buffoonish Nikolai Malthus. What it lacked in historical accuracy, it made up in propaganda value, and it drove recruits into the FedCom ranks at record levels, and undoubtedly contributed to holding back the clans. In the show, in real life, Adam Steiner used his trusty Axman, which saw renewed interest and popularity as a result. Showing the mech successfully standing toe-to-toe against clan Omnimechs sure doesn't hurt a sales pitch. Steiner's Axman, painted in yellow and dark gray striping, became a symbol of the Lyran resistance to clan aggression, much to the horror of the Jade Falcons, who saw the axe-wielding battlemech as a perfect example of the barbarity and decline of the Inner Sphere. Though Steiner's battlemech would not survive the final slug match with Nikolai Malthus, a small piece of the mech did have a future. Apparently, the mech's right arm, including the modified hatchet it carried, ended up in the stockpile on Coventry, where it gathered dust until 3058, when the Jade Falcons arrived for some sightseeing. In the resulting interpersonal conflict between the Falcons and the Lyran defenders, the arm was grafted onto an AXM-1N piloted by a 71st Light Horse lieutenant named Tansley Wellington. The origin of the arm wasn't difficult to ID on sight, but the serial numbers confirmed that it was in fact a piece of the legendary battlemech. Naturally, Tansley Wellington was quick to broadcast that he was wielding the axe of Adam Steiner to all of the Jade Falcons he could. I'm sure they took it well. As the Grasshopper jumped back toward cover, a FedCom Axman charged around the corner of a building near its burning landsmate. The massive Luxor Devastator 20 autocannon mounted in the mech's right shoulder roared, vomiting a hail of fire and metal. Windows in the nearby buildings shattered from the percussive blasts as the stream of depleted uranium shells walked up the Grasshopper's right leg across its torso. Armor shards dropped like rain while the pilot fought to keep the airborne mech balanced. Its arms wheeled in circles as it tilted to the left, drifted back behind the cover of a building, then crashed to the ground. All Good Things, Shrapnel Year 1, page 1068, by James Lee. Just 1 year after the 1N first marched off the assembly lines, that persistent issue with the AC-20 autocannon led to a quick variant that took the mech in a considerably different direction. That loadout was largely the same, with its 464 movement, 10 double heat sinks, and 10 tons of ferrofibrous armor. The hatchet remained, thankfully, along with the large pulse laser and 3 medium lasers. The only change was the removal of the AC-20, which was replaced by 2 LRM-15 launchers split between the side torsos. Each launcher fed from a pair of ammunition storage units in a case-protected left torso. This curious change did technically increase the total possible damage for the battlemech, but it came with the notable LRM asterisk of scattered damage, minimum firing range, and the lower average damage once you factor in missiles that don't always track to target. The Axman 2N saw significant use across the units of the Federated Commonwealth, though its hatchet would often end up waiting while the mech expended its LRM ammunition in a fire support role. Though it might not seem logical, apparently the 2N was popular among Lyran troops facing down clan raiding forces. Driftwood and his axe crashed down scant meters from Major Ward's Wolverine. Even as his axemen landed, 65 tons of steel, Myomer muscle, and mean-spiritedness, Driftwood brought his axe into play. Major Ward pivoted almost as nimbly as I just had, even with 20 tons on me, and avoided the worst of the blow. What caught her hard, though, and her Wolverine's left hand was cleaved messily off. Driftwood's heavy axe blade not even slowing as it hacked through her upraised limb. Second to None, Shrapnel number 15, page 319, by Russell Zimmerman. It wouldn't be until 3060 that the Axeman would get another whack with the upgrade stick. This time it was Defiance Industries taking their turn to see if they couldn't tweak the mech to their customers' needs. It's worth noting that part of this decision was the result of the Lyran secession from the Federated Commonwealth. Since many pieces of the Axeman were deliberately built across Fedcom space, the breakup of the state resulted in production relying upon stockpiles of parts they already had on hand. When those ran out, the mech faced extinction. Though the Axeman had been seen as an opportunity to bind the Federated Commonwealth together, it ended up a casualty of that civil war. Thankfully, it wasn't a death blow, and Defiance took the opportunity to update the mech with the latest and greatest. The most notable structural change was a shift over to a 260 light fusion engine from the original XL. This improved the 3S's durability by limiting the number of engine critical hit locations in the side torsos to just 2 instead of 3. The mass investment was paid for with the loss of the traditional large pulse laser. In a nod toward the original 1N, an LB-20X autocannon was set into the right torso and fed by 4 tons of case-protected ammunition. The traditional 3 medium lasers were upgraded to their ER variety, which matched the autocannon's range profile. The hatchet remained in the right arm, and finally a Guardian ECM was added to the left torso, making this our first Operation Sneaky Sneak Axeman of the day. Your feelings on the Axeman 3S may boil down to how you feel about the loss of that large pulse laser in order to slightly improve the mech's durability and boost the flexibility with that LB-20X. I'm personally torn on it and could be happy with the 1N or 3S depending upon the way the coin flips. If you're not happy with any of the options so far, it would only be a scant 9-year wait for the next official variant. The AXM-3SR was a sub-variant of the 3S which added an 11th double heatsink, but was otherwise structurally the same. The loadout consisted of most of the 3S's loadout except the LB-20X was swapped out for a rotary AC-5 autocannon and a center torso mounted medium pulse laser. The RAC-5 was fed by 4 tons of ammunition, which was plenty for most engagements. Overall, as a test bed of the rotary autocannon, the Axman 3SR is pretty solid. Javier's Axman sat in the open, 200 meters in front of her. His mech was in no better shape than her Thunderbolt. The axe the mech was named after had long since been replaced with a makeshift double-headed club forged from scavenged I-beams from a construction site. Strangely, the weapon, coupled with the Axeman's patchwork armor and rough appearance, made the mech look more intimidating. Once You Go Trader, Slack Tide, Battlecore Anthology, page 158, by Chris Husey. In 3071, the original Axeman 1N production line on new Syrtis was upgraded for a brand new variant designated the AXM-4D. It took a more radical turn with the Axeman platform, and one which is likely one of the more controversial of the bunch. As it had a Davion lineage instead of Lyran, the XL engine made its return. While the size of that engine wasn't tinkered with, the mech's 4 jump jets were sacrificed to make room for larger weapons loadout. Besides the hatchet, which was thankfully left in place, the primary weaponry consisted of 4 light AC-5 autocannons set into the side torsos and fed by 2 tons of ammunition in the case-protected left torso. 2 standard medium lasers were set into the left arm, and all of the weaponry benefited from the installation of a targeting computer in the left arm. The 10 single heat sinks look odd for a mech constructed in the 3070s, but with a max heat generation of 12 with a full alpha strike while on the run, the doubles aren't really needed. Overall, the Axeman 4D is my least favorite variant of the line. It offers so little while giving up agility and offensive power. Taking the jump jets off an Axeman should be considered a crime against humanity. How dare they? How dare they? Of course, now that I say that, keep in mind the next two official variants lack both jump jets and the Mech's signature axe. The axe flashed down, shearing through Apollo's shoulder. As the Separatist wrenched his weapon free of Chang's crumpled armor, he unleashed his monstrous Luxor Devastator autocannon. Anti-armor hollow charge shells blasted into the Apollo's chest. Even over the din of battle, Brewer heard the rackety whir of a damaged gyro. Chang's crippled mech reeled under the impact and crashed to the ground. Before the downed Apollo stopped sliding, 4 of Brewer's mechs combined their fire to destroy the Axman. As the big machine fell, Brewer searched for another target, but found none. The rebels who had been caught outside the mech bay were on the run. The Dying Time, page 256, by Thomas S. Gressman. In 3074, the Axman found itself the testbed for an experimental program that mixed clan and inner sphere technology as well as a fully modular handheld weapon system which could mimic and even improve upon OmniMech technology. Defiance Industries, under the leadership of a Dr. Hansel Zinser, started the AXM-6X program and rebuilt the mech using endosteel wrapped around a 325XL engine along with a center torso supercharger. This pushed the 6X's movement profile to 580 and even 510 in short bursts. 12 tons of standard armor provided slightly improved protection over earlier variants, and it carried 10 double heatsinks. Hard built into the 6X were 2 Thunderbolt 15 launchers split between the side torsos and both fed by just 2 tons of case-protected ammunition. That's 4 shots per launcher for the uninitiated. The situation trended toward the absurd with the installation of 4 ER medium lasers into the mech's legs. Yep, you heard that right. Unfortunately, the Axman's hatchet was sacrificed to make it possible for the mech to carry a variety of independent handheld weapon systems, which were the primary draw for this technology. It offered the Mechwarrior the possibility of quickly swapping one weapon for another in the heat of battle. This was something that not even the clan OmniMechs could offer with their pod technology. The design team created 8 handheld weapon variants, which were offered for sale along with the mech. Someone at Defiance Industries was just hearing cash register bells over and over looking at this thing. Each weapon's pod weighed 6.5 tons and was deliberately self-contained, so if the light AC-5 option was chosen, it came with 1 ton of ammunition and 0.5 tons of additional armor. The MML-7 option came with 1 ton of ammo and 1 ton of additional armor. My personal choice, once I got over the lack of jump jets, was the 2 fluid guns fed by 2 tons of supply along with half ton of armor. If I can't hit something with a big axe, I want to cover it with something flammable and walk away slowly to an 80s power ballad while it burns. The TRO suggested that it would be used in firefighting or non-lethal crowd control, but let's not kid ourselves. As of the TRO's date of distribution, 6 AXM-6Xs were produced, and the fans of the system were keen on moving forward with full production. Detractors pointed out the high cost of the mech in comparison to its low damage output. Attempts to address the 6X's shortcomings directly led to a new variant designated the 6T. This prototype unit once again sought to utilize the modular arm weapon system, but on a less expensive platform. The clan-grade XL engine was swapped for an Inner Sphere XL, and though endosteel and 11.5 tons of light ferrofibrous armor helped save mass while preserving strength, the supercharger from the 6X was pulled as impractical. In exchange for the lost speed, 2 additional tons of Thunderbolt 15 ammunition were added to the mech, improving their usefulness to 8 shots per launcher. The various handheld weapon configurations were all maintained from the 6X, including a Streak SRM-6 launcher with 1 ton of ammunition and an additional ton of standard armor. Between those 2 options, I lean heavily toward the AXM-6T as a far more practical machine. Sure, the clan-grade XL and supercharger would be fun, but there's 302 points of battle value difference between the 2 for that honor. Additionally, it hurts a lot less to have the 2 Thunderbolt launchers with 8 shots instead of 4. Missing a shot when you only have 4 total will cause some psychic damage. If you prefer the 6X over the 6T, please let me know in the comments. I'm curious to hear your reasoning. A company's worth of ghost mechs had reached Unity Square with her. As she had ordered, they winged out into the square to take the traitor mechs in the rear. Yamabushi had jumped his Axman clear down to the end of the line to fell a raptor with a single blow of its axe to absurdly thin rear armor. The big crested mech kicked its downed opponents contemptuously aside, then buried its axe to the hilt in another Omni when it turned to engage. And if you shoot toward the stands, make sure you hit what you're aiming at. Black Dragon, page 303, by Victor Milan. The newest of the Axeman, designated the AXM-5N in 3148, was only made possible due to the unlikely survival of the Mech's Johnston Industries production lines following Operation Celestial Reward and the ejection of the Capellans from New Syrtis. The 3140s were unkind to the Federated Sons, who suffered major setbacks due to the incursions from the Capellans and the Draconis Combine. This included the occupation of regional capitals like New Syrtis and their realm capital world of New Avalon. By early December of 3147, First Prince Julian Davion was ready to retake New Syrtis. Though the Federated Sons had taken a brutal beating, House Davion was resurgent largely because of Julian's leadership and a never-say-die desperation from the armed forces of the Federated Sons. There was a reason for what he was about to do, for what needed to be done. Revenge was such a pedestrian word. This feeling in the First Prince's breast went far beyond mere vengeance. This was a matter of putting things right, resettling the equilibrium between the Sons and the Confederation. A Splinter of Hope, page 6, by Philip A. Lee. Phase 1 of the Davion's Operation Cerberus involved a total isolation and envelopment of New Syrtis, cutting it off from Capellan reinforcements and finally reclaiming it for House Davion in Phase 2. Of course, this was all easier said than done. The AFFS and their supporting mercenary units were under fire almost immediately after jumping into the system. Though the Capellan forces on New Syrtis couldn't completely stop the landing of such a massive assault, their harassment with aerospace fighters and fast-moving vehicles at the beachhead slowed the progress considerably. The challenges didn't end on the ground either, as the Capellans, with the aid of Macaron's armored cavalry, were able to perform a fighting withdrawal that left many of the important sites ruined for future use. This is why I said it was unlikely when I pointed out the Johnston Industries Axman productions survived the attack. If you'd like to read about the battle to retake New Syrtis, check it out in A Splinter of Hope by Philip A. Lee. It's a quick read at 111 pages, and there are some cool fights with newer Dark Age battlemechs. So we lucked out with the existence of the 5N, which was quickly put into production once the Davions retook New Syrtis. It was a callback to the original loadout with a standard frame, Intersphere XL engine, and our first implementation of triple-strength Myomer on our Axman platform. For those who need a reminder, triple-strength Myomer can improve the speed and physical attacks of a mech carrying it should it be activated through the mech's excess heat generation. For those playing the tabletop game at home, that's 9 plus heat on the scale. For our friend the 5N, the 464 movement profile could be pushed up to 584, and hits with the hatchet could go from 13 damage to 26. Not too shabby at all. What a shame it took until 3148 to play with this. The 5N's 12 tons of light ferrofibrous armor provided 203 points of protection, which was just a half-ton less than the max possible for a 65-ton battlemech. As far as weaponry goes, the hatchet made its return, thankfully, and it was joined by 3 ER medium lasers. In the left arm, a clan-grade ER PPC offered a powerful 15 damage punch, as well as the opportunity to quickly build heat for that triple-strength Myomer. As fun as the clan ER PPC can be, the star of the show may be the Hyper-Assault Gauss rifle installed into the Case 2 protected right torso. Fed by 3 tons of ammunition, 18 shots, the HAG-20 has a range to nearly match the ER PPC, which can burn through armor pretty quickly. The last addition to the 5N was a Guardian ECM, further improving this Axman's ability to stay in the fight. Dangerous at all ranges, there's no foolproof way to take it down. He should not have worried. As he approached the champion's mighty axe, his battlemech was named for smashed down on the Combine mech's left arm. Armor plates shattered and rained down in a glittering hail into the churned mud at the mech's feet. Instead of withdrawing the massive blade, Eric used it to hold the arm in place as he fired his large-bore autocannon. At that range, the sound must have been deafening, and the effect of ripping through the King Crab's entire cockpit was enough to end that particular threat forever. The Damocles Sanction, page 99, by Michael J. Sierravella. Before we hop to the MF variant, we do need to touch upon an Axman which may end up rivaling Adam Steiner's machine in the pantheon of historic battlemechs. Eric Sandoval Grohl might be the Duke of Robinson, but most citizens of the Federated Sons would know him better as the Prince's Champion under Caleb Davion and then again under Julian. Sandoval's exploits on behalf of the Federated Sons pushed him to legendary status as the AFFS faced a nearly insurmountable threat from the Draconis Combine. Sandoval's use of his trusty AXM-1N Axman in the Battle for New Avalon will likely be taught to generations of aspiring mech warriors. The comparatively ancient 1N should have had trouble keeping up with the more modern battle mechs in the field, but reports suggest Sandoval used the mech's agility and that large pulse laser like a scalpel, tearing through Combine mechs as if they were training dummies. Sandoval ended the fight on New Avalon by cutting down Mitsuharu Toranaga's Atlas, cementing both the Axman and Sandoval in history as one of the Fed Sons' greatest liberators. Eric's Axman shook violently as it took another Gauss round, this time in the right leg, damaging the delicate connections near the hip. He ignored it as the two mechs came together, his axe flashing downward to cut into the control runs in the Atlas's right arm. Toranaga's armor did little to stop the Axman's reinforced blade, and the arm fell limp to the mech's side, removing the threat of that ER-large laser mounted on it. Desperate to regain the advantage, Toranaga fired another volley of missiles. Damage alarms wailed in Eric's cockpit, and a half-dozen areas on his armor diagram turned red, but he ignored it, lining up his heavy autocannon at point-blank range. The Damocles Sanction, page 126, by Michael J. Saravella. There was no way that I was going to cover the Axman and not attempt to refine the mech for my own personal brand of fire and fury. For the totally non-canon and unofficial AXM-5NMF, I see it as a Capellan one-of refit of a captured Davion 5N variant. This hardware is largely the same with its Innersphere XL engine, triple-strength myomer, standard structure, and 10 double heatsinks, though I did boost the armor to 12.5 tons of that Innersphere light ferrofibrous, which maxes out the possible armor with 211 points. Keeping the hatchet in Clan ERPPC, the rest of the loadout was shifted to take advantage of the newly produced Capellan plasma rifle, which sits pretty in the right torso, along with 2 tons of ammunition. Backing it up at mid and short range, 2 Clan-grade medium pulse lasers sit in the left arm, and finally, in emotional support, Clan-grade small pulse laser sits in the left torso. All of the weapons benefit from the addition of an Innersphere-grade targeting computer in the left torso. Due to the use of triple-strength myomer and having just 10 double heatsinks, the AXM-5NMF is not a mech for new players. Riding the heat curve with the ERPPC, plasma rifle, and pulse lasers could be tough, but also represents a fun challenge for the seasoned folk who enjoy getting more bang out of their buck with a well-placed hatchet strike for 26 damage. If you want to give it a try, I've included a PDF record sheet for it in the Dropbox link in the video notes below. Please let me know how it goes and how many mechs you chopped into little pieces along the way. So why do we love the Axman? Ignoring for a moment our inherent mammalian desire to hit things with axes, the Axman is a quality producer. It has a niche, and while you know what the mech warrior's plan is going to be, the mech has enough tools to make stopping that plan uniquely challenging. It's a battle mech that has strong connections to the BattleTech lore through multiple entry points. Old farts like myself can't look at the Axman and not think about waking up early on Saturday mornings to watch the BattleTech cartoon, even if it did the Jade Falcons a little dirty. Meanwhile, newer fans of the game entering through the Ilclan era content are introduced to the Axman through Damocles Sanction, which is one of the best written newer novels. I'm curious what you think about our venerable Axman. Does it need more love, or is it already overexposed? Is there a variant that you think is the Axman in its ideal form? Please let me know in the comments and we can keep the discussion going. Thank you as always for coming by as we talked BattleTech, and thank you to those from the MechFrog Discord who shared your painted mech minis. If you want to join us, I've included a link to the Discord server in the video notes below. If you enjoyed this video and felt it's worthy, don't forget the thumbs up button, and even hitting subscribe will make it much more likely you'll see my nonsense in the future. For those of you who have taken that extra step of becoming channel members or supported on Ko-fi, thank you. Without you, none of this would be possible. Until we meet again, please take care of yourself and your loved ones and make this world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.